Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku becomes one of the greatest villains? After AllMight said he couldn't be a hero, part 1. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, Mr. TTT. Link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. So can you be a hero, not without a quirk? Izuku couldn't believe it. He was currently talking to his idol, the #1 hero, AllMight, on the rooftop of a building after he saved him from the sludge villain. He was asking him if he could become a hero without a quirk because he was born quirkless. Quirkless people were usually prejudiced on the fact that 80% of the world population has a quirk, and they are just a measly 20%. Because of this, Izuku was always bullied. Even his best friend started to torment him, but he never let it go to him. He always believed he would become a hero, the first quirkless hero. He was just asking AllMight if it was possible. If you want to help people, there are plenty of ways to do it. You could become a police officer. They get crap because the heroes capture most of the villains, but it's a fine profession, AllMight said, as he was starting to walk away. It's not bad to have a dream, young man, but just make sure your dreams are achievable, AllMight said, as he left the roof, and Izuku alone. Izuku felt crushed, like some villain put his hand in his chest, and exploded it. The only word he could currently think about was why, as tears fell from his eyes. Why was he born quirkless? Why was he the one getting bullied? Why did he have to be the one called worthless or Deku? A nickname his non-friend Katsuki Bakuga gave him. He never did anything wrong. Did piss off the universe in a different life. A different life. He started to remember the words Kachin, a nickname he called Bakugo, said, you know, there's one way for you to get a quirk. Just take a dive off the roof, and pray you will be reborn with a useful one. Maybe he couldn't. There is no use thinking about that. He should probably get home. His mother might be worried. As Izuku was walking home, he started to drown out all the sounds around him, and started to think about his life. He's always wanted to be a hero. Ever since he even knew what a hero was, he always dreamed about swooping in, and saving people with a smile, just like AllMight. Until the day he was 4 years old. He went to a doctor, and got diagnosed quirkless. The doctor didn't believe he could become a hero. He didn't even think his mother believed in him. And so, after that day, his life became hell. He and Kachin used to be actual friends, until he figured out that he was quirkless. Then he started to pick on him, and abuse him. For some reason, Izuku still had hope that they would go back to being. Then he started to look at all the abuse and bullying that he endured for the last 10 years, slowly chipping away at him, as if he was glass. But he still held hope that he could become a hero. But AllMight broke him. No, shattered is the better word. Shattered his belief that he could become a hero. Shattered his belief that someone out there would believe in him. That a yes would be there out of the hundreds of thousands of no's. Well, if the #1 hero, the man who literally said the words anyone can become a hero, does not believe in him, then what's the point of believing in that dream? Izuku realized he had reached his apartment. Must have spaced out, he thought. He opened the door, and greeted his mother, Inko. Izuku, are you okay? You look tired, Inko said worriedly. She was always overprotective of her son since, well, he was quirkless, and quirkless usually doesn't mean strong. Yeah, I just want to go to my room. It's been a long day, Izuku said tiredly. Oh, okay. Get some rest, alright, Inko said, a bit saddened, but he looked tired, and so she let him go to his room. When Izuku reached his room, he took a good look at it. Almost the entire room was an AllMight merch, AllMight posters, and figurines to AllMight pencils. So, he grabbed every last piece of merch, put it in a bag, and threw it out. No point in keeping AllMight merch if he doesn't even look up to him anymore. The only things left were his bed, table, chair, laptop, and his notebooks of heroes. He wanted to throw out the hero analysis notebooks, but something told him to keep it. Maybe it was because he's worked on them for his entire life, or maybe it's the closest thing to value he's made. So, he laid on his bed, and really started to grasp reality. He's been bullied his entire life for something he couldn't even control, and his favorite idol told him to be more realistic, and give up on becoming a hero. He wasn't sad. He's cried more times than he could count. All he felt was anger. Anger at society, and its heroes. Anger at its beloved symbol of peace. Anger at everyone that did him wrong or pushed him down. Why me? Why did I get the short end of the stick, and people like Kano, I won't call him that anymore, like Bakugo, get an amazing quirk? Why can't there be just one person to believe in me? Just one, Izuku thought angrily. Of course, it's society. It's society that made Bakugo an arrogant asshole, and society that believes that quirkless people are useless. It is also society that gave heroes like AllMight a silver platter, all because they have an amazing quirk. Nobody looks at the little guy anymore. It's only quirks, money, and fame for the heroes. That's all. Nobody's a hero for being a hero. Well, I'll show them. I'll show them all that I'm not useless or weak, that there is something wrong with society, and that heroes should be heroes only to save people, and not for the money or fame. Yeah, I'll do that. But how can I get the message across that the heroes are not all they seem to be, that I'm not useless? How can I change society? Izuku thought to himself, pondering the question. And then something hit him, something he's never considered, but was never told he couldn't do. They never said I couldn't be a villain, Izuku thought with realization. Yes, that's it, I'll be a villain, but not just any villain, one of the best villains of all time. If I can't be a hero, then I'll be a villain so great, he changes society itself. No more fake heroes, no more prejudice to the quirkless, and for once I won't be seen as useless, Izuku thought with a smile on his face. So Izuku got off his bed, and went to his desk. He did the best thing he could do, and that was planning. He planned how he would start off. All villains have a starting point, right? He didn't know what he would do, until he remembered his notebooks. They have so much information on heroes that it's not even funny. To the villains, it would probably look like a gold mine. I could be an information broker, or better yet a strategist, Izuku thought. He could probably help some small-time thugs rob banks or stores. He would also have to learn new skills like mechanics or science, especially quirk science, to better help his skills as a villain. But the biggest thing on Izuku's mind was what he was going to call himself. He didn't want it to be cliché or over the top. He wanted his name to have meaning. I should probably go to bed. It's getting pretty late, Izuku thought, as he read the clock that said 10:15 p.m. As he was going to bed, he thought of one word, a Japanese word that means new or fresh, like a new him, and a fresh society. Naruto was the last thing Izuku thought happily, as he went to sleep. The next day Izuku went walking around Mustafa City. He was trying to find some small criminal gangs or thugs that he could work with so that he could make a name for himself. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to start as a villain, and he can't really ask anyone or they'll look at him as if he's crazy. He was currently wearing a white hoodie with some black pants and black sneakers. He wore a scarf around his mouth and his hood up to protect his identity. Can't have anyone recognizing him and telling the police that he's a villain. He walked around for hours until dusk. It was getting late, and he had no luck. Damn it, Izuku thought frustratingly. Where could these villains be at? Well, I don't blame them. Can't be out in the open talking about your secret plans, he realized. As Izuku was walking down an empty street, he heard some men talking. He decided to listen to their conversation just to see if they were villains he could work with. So when we were doing this, one man spoke, his voice sounding deep. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning. Another man spoke, his voice a bit lighter than the other. So we just barge in the store and take the money, the first man said. Yeah, pretty much, the second one said. Izuku couldn't believe his luck. Two villains planned to rob a store, and they didn't even have a good plan. He decided to confront them and ask if they wanted more help. Calm down, Izuku. You can do this, he thought while taking deep breaths. You don't seem to have much of a plan, Izuku said, his voice a bit muffled by the scarf around his mouth. Who the hell are you? The first man said while getting a knife that manifested out of nowhere. This is when Izuku got a good look at them. The first man was tall, about 6 feet 0 inches feet, wearing a black sweater, jeans, and some rundown boots. He had short black hair with a beard, a buff physique, skin that looked tan, and black onyx eyes. The second man was a bit shorter than the first, but not by much. He was wearing a gray shirt, blue jeans, and some blue sneakers. He had short blonde hair, was skinny, had pale skin, and blue eyes. The first man looked a lot more intimidating than the second, but Izuku had the feeling the second man was the leader of the two. Don't worry, I'm not here to rat you out or harm you, Izuku said with a calmer voice. He's trying to let the men's guard down so he could talk business with them. And why should we believe that? The first man said with a bit of sarcasm. Well, if I wanted to rat you out, I would have called the police already, and just run away. And if I wanted to harm you, I would have tried for a sneak attack. And well, I don't really look like I could take the both of you on and win, Izuku responded, trying to act friendly. Then what did you come here for? This time it was the second man who asked with curiosity in his voice. Well, I want to help you out, Izuku said, answering his question. Why? The second man asked. Because I want to make a name for myself as a villain. Everyone's gotta start off somewhere, right? So I decided to help villains with their plans, like a strategist. No offense, but your plan doesn't seem that well made. There are so many flaws with just going in and out. You could easily get caught by heroes or the police, Izuku explained, mumbling a bit off topic. The first man seemed ticked off at the statement, but the second seemed genuinely curious. He was wondering if this kid had a talent for strategizing, and he had a point. The plan wasn't the best, and had a lot of weaknesses. Alright then, we're planning to rob the gas station up in the north. How do you think we should go by it? The second man asked. Well, Izuku broke off for a moment, thinking. After a couple moments, he got his answer. Well, first you should either rob at night, or early in the morning, because that's the time there are the least amount of people. Then you should check how far the police station is, and the hero patrols. The police are actually 20 minutes away from the gas station, so if you cut that by half, then you have at least 10 minutes to get in and get out. The earliest hero you have to worry about is Quicksand, but he reaches the gas station by 9 a.m., and if he got the call that you were robbing the place, the earliest he would get there is by 7 a.m., and by then you'll be long gone. You should also get rid of the cashier as fast as possible to reduce the eyewitnesses. You should wear masks and try to leave as little DNA evidence as possible. The only problem is the cameras, but I should be able to take care of them. Izuku actually learned computer science before, and learned enough where he learned how to hack systems. He only took it as a hobby though, since at the time he still had the dream of being a hero. Both men were shocked. The second man especially saw how much potential this kid had, as a villain and a strategist. Oh, sorry, I rambled on again. You see, I just want you to spread my name around. You don't have to give me any money, Izuku replied honestly. If he was going to become one of the best villains, he had to let the villains know how valuable he was, as an asset. Alright, you can join us, but if you betray us, you don't want to know, the first man said. Don't worry, I won't, Izuku said worriedly. He really didn't want to get on these guys' bad sides. Well kid, if you want to get your name around, you've got to tell us your name, the second man said. Arita, Izuku replied. Well Arita, I call myself A, and my partner with the beard here is Aylward, A said. What are your quirks? Izuku asked. Well, I can put people to sleep by touching them, and Aylward can summon one small object on each hand. It can be a knife, gun, or a picklock, A replied. Meet up at the gas station by 6 o'clock, and get everything you need ready, and don't be late, A said while he and Arita were walking out of the alleyway. Izuku couldn't believe it. He impressed the villains enough to where they allowed him to help out. He could have started jumping for joy. Izuku quickly went home and greeted his mother. He said he stayed out late to just walk around the city, and luckily his mother believed him. He quickly got everything ready. He would wear the same outfit he already wore, and he would bring his laptop so he would be able to get into the gas station system. He brought a secret knife he hid in his drawer, just in case he ever gets into a fight. He looked at the clock, and it said 10:45. He had less than 7 hours of sleep until he had to meet the guys, so he went to bed, and quickly went to sleep. When Izuku woke up he was a bit confused at first until he remembered what happened yesterday. He looked at the clock, and it read 5:15 a.m. His mother was still asleep, and wouldn't wake up until 8 or 9, so he was safe with her. He quickly packed up, and quietly left his apartment. He would have to take a train that would take 30 minutes to get to the closest station to the location. And to get there would take a 15-minute walk, so he would get there just on time. When he reached the gas station he saw an Aylward at a dark corner of the store, away from all the lights. Izuku noticed that both of them were wearing masks and dark clothing, so that meant they actually took his advice seriously. Izuku quickly reached and greeted them. So you actually came, kid, A said. Yeah, well, I didn't lie to you, Izuku replied. Good, Aylward grunted. So you have everything? A asked. Yeah, I just gotta get ready, Izuku replied. Well, we're starting now, so get ready right now, A said, as he and Aylward were going into the store. Izuku quickly opened up his laptop and got into the gas station's system. It was surprisingly easy since he thought they would put more effort into their security. Izuku then got into the cameras and disabled them, and put them where they wouldn't come on until 6:30. After a couple of moments, he heard the alarm. Izuku hoped that they remembered they had at least 10 minutes before the police arrived. After 7 minutes, and then not arriving, Izuku got impatient. He got up, put his hood up to conceal his identity more than the scarf already did, can never be too cautious, and went into the store. What he saw was the employee knocked out, and Aylward grabbing money out of the cash register, and a small safe. Aylward probably used his quirk to open them. What's taking so long? We have 3 minutes left, Izuku said hurriedly. Don't worry kid, we're almost done, A said right, as he and Aylward put the last of the money in the bag. Well, let's go then, Izuku reminded them, and all three of them ran out of the store. And right at the 10-minute mark, when they all were a safe distance away from view, they saw the police arrive. Well shit kid, you were right, I don't know what we'd do without you, A said. Get arrested, Izuku thought blankly. Well, after everything you've done for us, I think you deserve 50,000 yen. Oh, and don't worry about your name, we'll be sure to tell everyone underground how great Arita is. Izuku was surprised. Not only did they agree to spread his name, but also gave him an extra bonus. He thought villains were all, well, not so nice. It seems this is another flaw in the current society, always judging others. Not all villains are bad, but not all heroes are good either. As and Aylward were walking away, Izuku called out to them. Wait, will we ever meet each other again? Izuku asked. I don't know, kid. The thing about being a villain is, if you work with other people, they tend to leave after a certain amount of time. Unless you join them, as a group. Will we meet again maybe? A replied, as he and Aylward were leaving. Izuku stood there, taking in the knowledge, and decided it was best to remember it. As he was walking home, he started to look back on what happened. He just robbed his first ever store, and it was successful. And not only did the guys he was working with agree to spread his name, they even gave him a bonus. It seems I'm starting to make a name for myself, Izuku thought with a smile right as the sun was coming up. It's almost been 10 months since his first robbery. Ever since then, he's been getting requests from villains to help with robberies, hero assaults, and any other crimes they need him for. It seemed to had his connections. He even made some profit from the jobs. The villains paid him large amounts since he was so valuable. One of his biggest crimes, robbing a bank, went so successfully that the villains gave him 1/3 of the money. Izuku could barely count it all. What Izuku didn't understand was that the villains called him a prodigy, their most useful ally, a golden egg, while the society he lived in called him useless or weak. It was all backwards. The villains gave him compliments while the hero society criticized and insulted him. Another way Izuku spread his name was by giving out valuable information about heroes. If they wanted to know how to defeat any hero, he had a whole encyclopedia of strategies. They just had to pay a certain price. He started to improve his skills in hacking, and even learn how to build gadgets. He was currently building an exoskeleton that improved his movements and strength. He even started working out, making a training regimen. Since he was quirkless, he needed every advantage he could get if he ever got into a 1-1 fight with someone with a quirk. He was still going to school. The reason why is if authorities see right when an intelligent teen who took notes about heroes suddenly disappears, and right after that a villain pops up, who is incredibly intelligent, and has information on heroes, it wouldn't take long to connect the dots. No, Izuku didn't want to reveal his identity yet, not until he was ready. Until that time, he would still wear the mask of Iida. What Izuku was really interested in was quirk science. He was currently researching what quirks are at a biological level, and if he could somehow harness the power of quirks, he would need to do more research and get a proper facility. His room wasn't going to cut it. Too many vulnerable spots, and it was starting to get cramped. Plus he didn't want to get his mother involved with everything that he was doing. She was too kind, and he didn't want to get her in harm's way. He was currently walking to school, thinking about which high school he should go to since graduation is coming up. He obviously wasn't going to the UA. There were way too many heroes around, and he thought it was where a villain would most likely be, a traitor to give out information about the heroes. Plus he didn't believe the top high school of Japan would accept a quirkless reject like him. He had to find a good high school, one where he would have to move since, well, he didn't want to get his mother involved. Being a villain was dangerous, and he didn't want her in the middle of it. As he reached the school he saw Bakugo at the top of the stairs. He wore his usual snarl on his face, and it looked like he was standing there for a while. Connecting the dots, Izuku realized that he was actually waiting for him, which was odd. Ever since the sludge incident, he actually left Izuku alone. It must have given him a reality check that he wasn't as untouchable as he said he was. As Bakugo saw him, he stomped right towards him, and got right in his face. "What the hell have you been doing these last few months, Deku?" Bakugo asked angrily. Izuku started to worry. He knew he sometimes skipped school, and came late because of his villain duties. He didn't want anyone, especially Bakugo, to figure out what he was doing. What do you mean, Kachin?" Izuku said timidly, trying to sound innocent. "Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You come in late to class, and sometimes you're skipping school. You think I don't notice, huh?" "Well, I know exactly what you're doing," Bakugo said. Now Izuku was really worried. If Bakugo found out that he was a villain, he was screwed. He didn't know what to do. He thought he covered his tracks well, but now he realized that he messed up. He tried to think about how to get out of this situation. Maybe he could. "You're training to be a hero, aren't you? Trying to get into the UA. Well, I'll tell you this. You'll never get into UA. I'll make sure of that," Bakugo said. Now that surprised Izuku. Bakugo thought he was training to be a hero. This is interesting. Alright, I'll play along, Izuku thought to himself. "Yeah, well, if you want to be a hero you have to train and work hard, right?" Izuku said. "Well, I'm the only one getting into the UA, remember that, Deku." And with that, Bakugo walked away. That was anticlimactic. Well, it could have gone worse, Izuku thought, as he went to class. Meanwhile, at a bar there were two men. One was a young man in his early 20s, and was sitting on a stool. He had light blue hair, black shirt, and black pants. He had hands covering his face, arms, neck, and if you looked closely enough, you could see he had red eyes. His name was Tamura Shigaraki. The other man was behind the counter, cleaning glasses. He wore a green vest, white-colored shirt, black pants, and brown fancy shoes. For his face and hands he had a purple-black mist. His name was Kurojiri. They were currently talking about potential recruits, and Kurojiri remembered someone he heard about. "There is actually someone you might want to meet, Tamura," Kurojiri said. Who?" Shigaraki asked. "His name is Iida, and he's a strategist," Kurojiri replied. "I wonder if he's any good," Shigaraki mused to himself. He's actually very successful. Everyone he's worked with has good reviews about him. He appears to be a prodigy at strategizing. He even sells valuable information about heroes he collects, Kurojiri said. What do you think, sensei? Shigaraki seemed to be asking a monitor behind him. I believe he can be a potential recruit to the league. If he joins us, he could be very valuable, this man who was called sensei said. Then I will find him, and ask if he wants to join us, Kurojiri replied, as he left the bar to find Iida. Later that day, Izuku was walking around trying to find some more employers. He was also asking if they knew of a secluded warehouse that he could properly call his secret villain base. Not the most original name, but it would have to do. As he was walking around the usual alley, he was called by someone. Hey you in the white sweater? As Izuku turned around, he saw two men. The man who called out to him looked like your typical broker. He wore a scruffy purple suit, purple pants, and fancy black shoes. He had light purple hair, purple sunglasses, a beige scarf, and had a cigarette in his mouth. But the second man looked odd to Izuku. He wore a typical vest and suit, but it was his face, and hands, or lack thereof. All he had for a face and hands was some weird purple mist. Is it a part of his quirk, Izuku thought, curious about the misty man. Who are you, Izuku asked the scruffy-looking man. The name's Jiren, and what I'm here for is to give you an invitation to the League of Villains, Jiren said. League of Villains, never heard of them. They must be new, Izuku thought. What is this League of Villains? Izuku asked. They are a new and upcoming group. They see promise in you and want you to join them, Jiren replied. This might be an opportunity for me. Joining a villain group is a next big step for me becoming one of the greatest villains. Alright, I'll join them. But who's that? Izuku said, pointing to the misty man. My name is Kurojiri, and I am here to transport you to the base, Kurojiri replied. Transport? What does that mean? Izuku thought curiously. Kurojiri then opened a portal that looked out of the same substance that his body was made of. Well, that explains his looks. I wonder, could his whole body be a teleporter, and the portals just be a part of his body? Izuku thought, as he entered the portal. When he came out, he saw that he was in a bar. He saw a light blue-haired man with a hand on his face sitting on a stool. He also noticed a monitor that said sound only. Izuku walked up to the blue-haired man to greet him. You always have to make a good first impression. Hi, nice to meet you, Izuku greeted him. At least he has manners, the blue-haired man grunted. Sorry for the rudeness. This is the boss, Tamura Shigaraki, Kurojiri said. So, Iida was it? What's your real name? Shigaraki demanded. What's yours? Izuku asked. One thing Izuku learned was to never give out your real name, no matter how trustworthy they seemed. They were still villains after all. Shigaraki just grunted in reply. Come on, Tamura, give him a chance. If you want to accomplish your goals, you're going to need to recruit valuable assets like Iida, Kurojiri said. Fine, what do you have against the heroes and society? Shigaraki asked. He really wanted to know if Iida had similar ideas to him, and then he would decide if he would let him join or not. I think society is a joke. They're so heavily dependent on AllMight that they act as if he's a god. Well, he's not. He's a man just like anyone else. Society is also heavily dependent on quirks. They never see anything else as useful anymore. If you're quirkless or have a weak quirk, then you're automatically labeled weak or useless, no matter what other talents you have. Heroes are even worse. They only really care about quirks, popularity, or fame. And if there is a good hero out there, nobody cares. Nobody looks at the little guy anymore. All in all, heroes, especially AllMight, are leeches to their power and popularity, and the people of society are leeches to heroes, mostly AllMight. If AllMight ever dies or gets killed, well, society would be in chaos. Izuku finished emotionally. He really spoke from the bottom of his heart, and talked about what he really felt. He always knew this, but before he was blinded by his dream of becoming a hero. Now, he can see what society and its heroes really are. Shigaraki and Tamura were shocked. They never heard a villain talk so deeply about his ideals before, Shigaraki especially. He realized that his and Arata's ideals were quite similar. He especially liked it when he called AllMight a leech. I like that a lot. Alright, you can join us, Shigaraki replied. Welcome to the League of Villains, Iida. Kurojiri followed. Well, if it's not asking too much, I have two conditions, Izuku said. And what are those? Kurojiri asked. Well, I'm still going to school. Before you ask, it's more to keep my identity a secret. No one would expect a villain to still go to an ordinary high school. The other condition is if you have a warehouse I could use, like something I could use as a secret base to put my valuable information in, Izuku asked. Actually, we have a place you could use. It was an abandoned warehouse a couple blocks away from the Nomu factory. As for school, we could call you if we ever need your assistance, Kurojiri said, as he was giving him a burner phone. Kurojiri then opened a portal and left Izuku back where he was found. After that, he went right behind the counter again and started washing the glasses. Shigaraki then turned to the monitor that held Sensei, who was listening to the entire conversation. "Sensei, what did you think of him?" Shigaraki asked. "I believe he will be very invaluable to the League, Tamura. You could learn a lot of things from him," a scarred man known as All For One said in an unknown location. He was actually quite curious of what Iida would bring to the League. Well, whatever it was, it would be very interesting. It's been a week since Izuku joined the League of Villains. In such a short amount of time he learned a lot about the members. He learned that Shigaraki could disintegrate anything if he touched 5 fingers with it. He also learned that Shigaraki wasn't really the official boss. The boss was actually a man he called Sensei who talked to through a monitor. Of course he wasn't going to stay in the League for long. Since he wanted to be one of the greatest villains and change society, he couldn't be known for being part of a group. He would stay for now, but eventually he would leave. He moved all his stuff into his new warehouse. He actually lied to his mom saying that the high school had dorms, and thankfully she believed him. All he had right now was a desk, some computers for his work, a bed, and some boxes that had his notebooks. Of course this was just the starting point. Later on he would upgrade the base so he could continue with his plans. He also figured out that Bakugo got into the UA. He was actually surprised, but not for the reason you think. He knew that Bakugo would easily pass the U.A entrance exams because of his quirk. But what he wondered was, did the U.A not take a psychological test? Because if they did, and looked a bit deeper into his history, he was sure they would kick him out. Just another reason that society only cares about quirks. Though right now Izuku was currently on his bed, thinking. He was thinking about how he could change society. Of course, just becoming one of the greatest villains wasn't going to change society. Sure, it'll help, but he had to have a goal, an endgame, an evil plan, and to do that he had to figure out the problem with society. What caused society to be like it is now? Power-hungry and arrogant. If he figures that out, then he could create a solution. To create a solution, you first have to know what the problem is. Why is society like this? What is the reason why Izuku was thinking until he realized something? The reason he was bullied. The reason he was abused. The reason why he was called useless. The singular reason why no one believed in him was one word. Quirks. Of course, the entire reason I was bullied was because I don't have a quirk, but the rest of society does. Quirks are like drugs, and society is the human body. It may feel good, but certain parts are damaged, and eventually the whole body dies. Then I will be the doctor, prescribing medicine to the patient, helping him with his addiction, whether he likes it or not. Izuku thought with clarity. He finally had the answer to what the problem was. All he had to do was find the solution. Maybe I could dash, Izuku thought. Then he started muttering. He still had this habit, no matter how many times he had to get rid of it. It was when he was his most focused. And so, he started to think of ideas of how to get rid of quirks. Well, to solve anything, you first have to look at its simplest form. For quirks, that's DNA. Quirks are just what they sound, unnatural. A mutation in the DNA that slowly evolved over time. Some said that this is just a part of evolution, that we just evolved so much that we got superpowers. Though Izuku thought differently. Sure, we get mutations, but not to that extent. If we evolved so much that we got superpowers, then why didn't animals get them? If that was true, then bears with dragon wings and lizard tails would be common. No, it's something else. When he looked at the data for the first person to have a quirk, something was odd. Before the baby was fine, but the next day the baby had a quirk gene. It didn't make sense. The other thing he also noticed was that every quirk has the exact same gene. Of course, they're different genes signifying what the quirk did, but there was always that one. He called it the Q gene. But why? Why does every person with a quirk have a Q gene? Of course it could signify that it was a quirk, signifying that it was a change in the DNA. But why? Not every mutation of the course of evolution has the exact same gene. Sure, there are similarities, but down to the T, not changing at all. Now that was suspicious. This is odd. It's almost as if someone Izuku stopped. No, that's impossible. Someone created quirks by putting in the Q gene in people's DNA. That's crazy. But it makes sense, the evidence is there. If someone created the Q gene, and put it in people's DNA, maybe that's all he had to do. Maybe the body would do the rest. That's why it takes 4 years or more for a quirk to manifest. Not only that, if the body uses the Q gene to create superpowers, then the quirk must reflect the person in a way. Like Bakugo, he's angry and explosive, his quirk matches him perfectly. Or Shigaraki, he wants to destroy the hero society, his disintegration quirk is perfect for him. But it's not just personalities, perhaps the body has something to do with it, as well. Like someone with long legs might have a fast quirk, or someone might have a changed appearance just so the body can handle the quirk. Or a person with a disability probably has a weaker quirk than someone who doesn't, or may manifest their quirk later than normal, or not at all. Or maybe the quirk doesn't go into everyone. Both his parents had quirks, but he doesn't. No gene is perfect, especially artificially created. It can't go into every human body. This is crazy, but it's either someone did this, or God, or maybe both. Someone who believes he's God, and just gave humans quirks because he thought it would be fun. There's only one way to test this, my blood. If my blood doesn't have the Q gene, then it's confirmed, Izuku thought, as he went over to his DNA scanner. He actually bought this a couple days ago since he had a feeling he would need it. Izuku took a knife, poked the top of his finger, and put the blood in a beaker. He then put the beaker in the machine, and the machine started to read his blood. Izuku waited anxiously, and after a few moments he finally got the results. He put in a sample of Bakugo's blood, didn't ask how he got it, and the machine also read it. He then put in the Q gene from Bakugo's blood, and programmed the machine in order to see if he also had a Q gene. No match, it said. Izuku slumped down in his chair, seemingly exhausted. So it's confirmed, someone did this. If this really was evolution, then I would at least have a little bit. But I have zero trace, Izuku thought. He was then confused. If someone really did this, then why didn't more people know about this? If this was true, then wouldn't everybody try to find who did this, how, and why? He questioned himself, but then he quickly realized something. Of course, everybody is so infatuated with how awesome quirks are, and how to improve them, that they never really cared how they got them in the first place. They probably just wrote off some lame theories like it was a part of human evolution just to satisfy themselves, and go back to wooing at how cool that hero's quirk is. Izuku thought with disappointment. He keeps finding reasons why society sucks, and he's not even surprised anymore. The person who did this probably knew this too, most likely how he was able to remain hidden all this time, if he's even still alive. He most likely is. Figuring that he created a superpower gene, he could probably figure out how to extend his life. Of course, Izuku could be angry at this person. He was the one who created quirks, and he was justified to hate this person because it was quirks that made society what it was. But he wasn't. He was just disappointed in society, more than he already was. Think of it this way. Say a person gives someone a hammer, as a gift, and then that person uses the hammer to whack somebody in the head. The person that got whacked would be angry at the guy who hit him, not the person who gave him the hammer in the first place. It was the person who hit him that decided to misuse it. All the other guy did was give him a gift. He probably thought by giving the hammer to him, that he would build a house, not whack a person with it. The same applies to society. Society decided to misuse the gift called quirks, using it to destroy itself or create a corrupt system. They could have used quirks to evolve the human species to never-before-seen levels, traveled across planets, stars, galaxies maybe. Perhaps they could even explore the whole universe if they wanted, cure diseases, or maybe even elongate human lives to hundreds, if not thousands of years. But no, they didn't do that. Like a drug, they misused it, and now it damages them. So like any rational person would do, you would remove it, take the person's hammer back so he doesn't hurt anyone else, or take away the drugs from the addicted so they won't hurt themselves anymore. And so, Izuku went to plan. Perhaps he could make a machine that forces all the Q genes out of people's bodies, but it had to be on a worldwide scale. But after that, where would he put them? Of course, the Q genes can't stay in a machine. They only work on living organisms. Perhaps he could also make a device that implants all the genes into his body, but at a rate his body could handle. Of course, he couldn't put in all the genes in him at once. There would be complications. He also had to find out who this mysterious person was. He would call him Quirk Creator for now. Maybe he could convince him to show him how he made them, and then figure something out. Maybe there was something Q genes were attracted to, and he could then put this thing into his machine to get all of the quirks. Well, it was getting late, and Izuku started to go to bed. Before he went to sleep though, he thought of one thing. Every quirk in me, huh? How ironic. From having no quirk to having every quirk in the world, Izuku thought with a chuckle. The next day Izuku was wondering how he was going to find the Quirk Creator. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, since he's been in hiding for more than 100 years. So Izuku decided to search at the very beginning. He looked up doctors that were in the hospital at the time at the child's birth, but no luck. He then looked up doctors that worked at the hospital, but nothing. He even searched the entire staff. The Quirk Creator could be undercover, but nothing. Izuku was starting to get frustrated. He knew it was going to be hard, but this was ridiculous. He decided to take a break, though he also felt like not going to school, like something important was going to happen, and he had to be there. He quickly called the school, and told them he was sick. Thankfully they were gullible enough to believe him. As Izuku was thinking of ways to find the Quirk Creator, he got a call from Kurojiri on the burner phone he received. I wonder what he wants. Must be pretty important, Izuku thought. Hello, he answered. Izuku, are you free right now? Kurojiri asked. Yeah, why? Izuku asked, wondering what they needed him for. Quickly get ready for combat. Message me when you're done. And with that Kurojiri hung up. Combat, huh? Must be pretty serious. Thankfully I prepared, Izuku thought, as he got his gear. Izuku quickly got in his suit. It was actually like the hero costume he designed, but with a bit of improvements. It had 4 dark green armor pads on the upper body area that were light and flexible, perfect for protection. He also had armor pads on his shoulders, thighs, and upper arms. He wore white armored gloves, but there was something unique about them. He was a quick learner, so when he started researching costumes, he got a lot of ideas. He designed them to shoot compressed air bubbles whenever he snapped his fingers. How the glove does it is that it takes in the surrounding air, compresses it, and then shoots it out. Simple as that. He tried them on just to see how much damage they would do, and safe to say he wasn't disappointed. It cracked a hole in the wall, and he wasn't even going all out, more like 30% power. The black boots are also special. They kind of work like jet boosters. Whenever he jumped they would shoot out compressed air from the bottom of his feet. He wondered how far he could jump, and when he tried it out, he jumped 30 feet. Now for the heart of the suit, the exoskeleton. It was skinny, and fit his body perfectly. It covered his back, and the back of his arms and legs. It was basically made to work with his suit. They were both intertwined, one could not work as well without the other. The exoskeleton basically increased his strength and speed tenfold. At first Izuku thought of powering it with a battery, but then he got rid of that idea. He didn't want to be constantly worried about how much power he had left when fighting an opponent. Luckily, he found an alternative. The exoskeleton was powered by air, a simple but effective power source. It sucked in air, and then the generator would turn it into energy it could use. It even gave the gloves and boots power so they could work more effectively. And lastly, was the lower face mask that covered his nose and mouth. It was simple really, all it did was make his voice unrecognizable, and filtered the air just in case it was polluted. He would also wear a hood with the bunny ears. He didn't know why he kept the bunny ear though. Maybe it was a thing to connect him to his past self, the child that believed in heroes. Since Izuku was working out, he looked pretty toned, and so he decided to add a fighting style. For his fighting style, Izuku wasn't sure. At first he thought punching and kicking were good enough, but that was just too irrational and easy to break. He decided to look up hero fighting styles, and came across one. It was Gran Torino's style, an old hero that hasn't been seen in a couple years. His style was moving at multiple angles at high speeds. He decided to implement that style and improve on it. His style was now called Full Cowl, and it was perfect for him. He thought if an alternate version of himself became a hero somehow, he would most likely use this style as well. Izuku was pretty curious at how his suit would hold up in a fight. That was pretty much the reason why he was so excited. As he finished he looked at himself in the mirror. So this is what Erta looks like, Izuku thought, as he looked himself up and down. He honestly thought he looked really cool. He messaged Kurojiri, and a portal opened up. He quickly went through, and was a bit surprised at what he saw. He saw a whole bunch of thugs hanging around the bar. It must mean that whatever they were doing must be a raid, and a large one at that. He quickly went over to the counter, and met up with Kurojiri and Shigaraki. "You look like a true villain," Arata Kurojiri complimented. Shigaraki just grunted in agreement. "Thanks," Izuku said, happy that his hard work paid off in looks. "So, what are we doing? I mean, by all the thugs we must be doing a raid, right?" Izuku asked. "Very observant of you, Arata." "Yes, we are doing a raid at the USJ. We got information that AllMight would be there teaching some students, and so we will go there to kill him," Kurojiri explained. "Kill AllMight? How?" Izuku asked with speculation. "I mean, AllMight Isen #1 for no reason. Heh, that's why we have our secret weapon, Nomu." This time Shigaraki answered with a chuckle. He then pointed at Nomu at the back of the bar. It was Izuku didn't know what it was. It had a black muscular body, and was wearing large tan shorts. It had some sort of beak for a mouth, and had its entire brain exposed, with 2 eyes on the side of it. "That's Nomu, just what the hell is it?" And Shigaraki is pretty confident it can kill AllMight. "Wait, did they make it?" "No, I don't even want to know how they made it," Izuku thought, while wearily watching Nomu. "Well, when are we starting?" Izuku asked. "Right about now. We should get going," Kurojiri responded, as he opened a portal, and Shigaraki, Izuku, and the other lackeys went through. As Izuku reached the other side he saw that he was in a dome. As he looked up, he saw around 20 students, and the pro heroes Eraserhead, and 13. He then noticed Bakugo there, and smiled. It seems he could have some fun. But there was one thing missing. He didn't see AllMight. As the other villains started walking out, he heard Shigaraki say, "Where is AllMight? I even went through bringing this whole crowd just for him," with annoyance. He must have reached his time limit, Izuku thought with realization. He still remembered the true form of AllMight, the skinny weak man that gave Izuku his reality check. He then saw Eraserhead jump down the stairs and start fighting the villains. He was actually doing pretty well. The low lackeys had nothing on him. It seems he lives up to his hype, Izuku thought. He then saw 13, and the other students started to leave, but Kurojiri got up there, and scattered most of them across the building. It seems he didn't get all of them though. There were some who escaped, like a tall kid with glasses, a girl with brown hair and a bob cut, and 13. After a couple moments, Izuku was starting to get bored. He wanted someone to fight, preferably Bakugo, to test out his new suit. He then saw Kurojiri get thrown out, and the tall kid with glasses escaping. Shigaraki got really pissed at Kurojiri, and while he was going on a rant, Izuku was going to ask Kurojiri something. "Hey Kurojiri, can you transport me somewhere?" Izuku asked. "Where would you like to go, Iida?" Kurojiri responded. "Do you know where you transported that kid? He had spiky blonde hair, and an angry look on his face?" Izuku asked him. "Ah yes, of course," Kurojiri said, as he opened up a portal, and Izuku walked through it. As Izuku went out, he saw that he was in a building. He then saw Bakugo, and another kid with spiky red hair beating up some villains. Izuku decided to be polite, and introduced him to them. "Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Iida Izuku," his voice muffled by his mask. "What the hell do you want?" Bakugo snarled at him. He didn't know why, but he got a bad feeling about this villain. "I'm just here to test out my new suit, so come at me with everything you've got," Izuku replied. "Wish granted." Bakugo grinned, as he, and the spiky redhead, whose name is Kirishima, charged him. Izuku quickly put both of his arms out, and shot the air bubble at them. He charged the glove at 50% power to see what it could do. The air quickly hit Bakugo, and shot him across the room. Kirishima reacted quickly, however, and activated his hardening quirk, but it still flung him a couple feet. They were both stunned, Bakugo especially. Whatever quirk this villain had, it was a powerful one. The results exceeded Izuku's expectations. "That was better than I thought," he said. "That wasn't very manly," Kirishima responded, a bit worried for his classmate. "You bastard," Bakugo snarled, as he got up, and quickly charged him. He shot an explosion to make him rise up, and tried to shoot him head-on with his explosion. Izuku reacted quickly, however. He jumped to the side, activating his boots with his exoskeleton, and landed on the side of the wall. Izuku also made it to where his boots and gloves could stick to the wall, kind of like Spider-Man, a Marvel hero made around 100 years ago. Izuku then shot up, and hit Bakugo on his back with another air bubble, sending him flying again. He also saw Kirishima charging at him, but he hit him with another air bubble at 70% power. Kirishima had to stop, and block it head-on. When it hit him, he was sent flying across the room. That was a lot more powerful than before. Was he holding back? Kirishima thought with wonder. This villain was extremely strong, and they had to be cautious. "Damn you," Bakugo said, pissed. He was really angry now. This villain just humiliated him, twice. He quickly ran up to him, full of rage. Izuku saw this, and tried to jump up, and go to an angle, and shoot him again, but Bakugo anticipated this, and shot him with one of his strongest explosions right in his chest. Izuku was sent flying, and hit the wall. After he got up, he started to inspect himself. His suit was relatively unharmed, apart from a couple scratches here and there. It was fine. "It seems my defense is perfect," he thought with satisfaction. Izuku then ran up with incredible speed, and before Bakugo could even react, he punched him right in the jaw with increased strength and speed from his exoskeleton, and all of the workouts he did. He then jumped at the wall behind Bakugo, and then sped straight at him, punching him right in the side of the face, and he was turning to face him. Bakugo was sent tumbling, but luckily for him, Kirishima caught him at the last second. Izuku then started chuckling. He couldn't believe it. This was too easy. He believed that Bakugo was untouchable, that he could never beat him. But here Izuku was, thrashing him around like a rag doll. "I thought you were going to put up more of a fight. I guess you're not as strong as I thought," Izuku said, taunting Bakugo. Bakugo quickly got off Kirishima, and put his gauntlet in front of him. "You want to fight, huh? Well, eat this," Bakugo said, as he pulled a pin, and shot a massive explosion headed right at Izuku. "Oh shit," Izuku thought, as he quickly reacted, and shot an air bubble at 100% power. When they both met, they created a massive shock wave that shook the entire building. After it was over, they saw that both attacks negated each other. Bakugo was shocked. That was his strongest attack, and this villain just negated it like it was nothing. He didn't even look scathed by it. So, that was his strongest attack. "If I didn't react quickly enough, I would have died." Did the Utada really allow this? I mean, he could actually kill someone if he wasn't careful, which he probably wasn't. He was too blinded by his anger to beat me that he probably didn't think of the consequences, Izuku thought with disappointment at UA. Izuku then realized that there were cracks starting to form. It seems their attacks were so powerful that the building was actually starting to collapse. "Well, this is my cue to leave. It was nice fighting you too," Izuku said, as he started running away. Bakugo and Kirishima saw this, and started to follow him, but Izuku pulled a pin on his exoskeleton, and steam started to come out. This served as a cooling down mechanism if the exoskeleton ever got too hot. It also had the added bonus of being able to run away discreetly because the steam is blocking his opponent's view. Thankfully his mouth guard, and Hood were still up, or else Bakugo would be able to recognize him. Izuku could have beaten Bakugo quite easily. He could have beat him over and over until he gave him a painful death. But no, Izuku wouldn't step to that level. Not that he had a problem with killing, but if he did that to Bakugo, then he wouldn't be any better than him. He was better than that. Of course, in the future he would have the chance to do whatever he wanted to him once he completed his endgame. Izuku quickly reached Shigaraki and Kurojairi and saw something interesting. Eraserhead was pinned down by Nomu, but he was glaring at Shigaraki with his face bloodied, who had his hand on the face of a frog-looking girl. He must have saved her at the last second. How cool of you, Eraserhead, Izuku said, complimenting him. Eraser then looked at him for a moment. He didn't know why, but something about this villain felt different, like he wasn't ordinary, and had something special about him. Nomu then smashed his face on the ground. So you're back, Erita, Shigaraki said. Yeah, no offense. But was this really the plan? I mean, All Might isn't here, so I think you should have added a plan B just in case. Well, right now I think the best course of action is to leave now, since pros are coming because that one kid escaped, Izuku said. Shigaraki was annoyed, but decided to keep the advice. Sensei did tell him to learn from Erita. You may be right. Kurojairi, Shigaraki started to say, but was cut off by the entrance doors slamming open. Izuku then saw All Might himself coming in, wearing a yellow suit. It's fine now, I am here, All Might said, but the thing was, he wasn't smiling, he actually looked pissed. Change of plans, Kurojairi. It seems we still have a chance to kill him, Izuku said with malice in his voice. If they actually killed him, he wouldn't know what to feel. He would probably feel a sort of sick satisfaction or amusement at the death of the man that broke him. It seems you're right, Shigaraki said with an evil smile. It seems today the symbol of peace would die. Before Izuku could react, All Might quickly beat all the thugs at the front, and grabbed Eraserhead, and the two students Shigaraki tried to kill. He even grazed Shigaraki where he took the front hand off his face. Shigaraki quickly put the hand back on, and said, it seems you were right, Erita. He really has gotten weaker. Shigaraki said this because if he was stronger then All Might would have hit him head on, not just scrape him. Izuku was actually the one who implied that All Might was weaker, with the excuse that All Might wasn't as active as before. Of course he didn't tell him All Might's secret, because he had a hunch that Sensei already knew. The two students quickly picked up Eraserhead, and left while All Might faced them all off. As All Might was about to hit them, Nomu quickly barged in, and blocked his attack. All Might and Nomu started fighting, and Izuku saw that his skin was rippling. It seemed Nomu had a shock absorption quirk, Izuku concluded. All Might quickly got behind Nomu, grabbed him, and took him to the ground trying to suplex him. Luckily Kurojairi was able to open a portal, and now Nomu had the upper half of his body through the other side of the portal. That's actually pretty clever, Shigaraki. Opening up a portal so when all Nomu's body, and half of All Might's, went through the portal, you would close it, and All Might would only have his upper body left, and be killed, Izuku said, complimenting him. You see, game over, Shigaraki said with glee. This was it, the death of the symbol of peace. His excitement was short-lived however when an explosion from Bakugo hit Kurojairi, and ice from a boy with red and white hair froze Nomu, stopping just before it reached All Might. Izuku realized that the boy, whose name was Todoroki, froze Nomu to where his grip was loose enough where All Might could escape. Izuku realized that Bakugo figured out Kurojairi's weakness and now had him pinned by his collar. He also saw Kirishima, a bit disappointed that he wasn't able to get in the action. Izuku acted quickly however, and shot an air bubble at Bakugo so he would be forced to let go of Kurojairi. Nomu then got out of the portal, and started to regenerate his arm and leg. He has regeneration too. It seems he has multiple quirks. No wonder Shigaraki seemed so confident that he would win, Izuku thought. Nomu then moved at incredible speeds and attacked Bakugo, but unfortunately All Might saved him at the last second. He would have liked to see Nomu rip Bakugo to shreds, even if it wasn't Izuku himself doing it. Izuku then saw Todoroki, Bakugo, and Kirishima get ready for a fight, but All Might intervened. No, leave now, this is a fight for the pros. I don't want you in harm's way when we fight, All Might said. They reluctantly agreed, and started leaving, as Bakugo gave a harsh glare to Izuku, while Todoroki looked at him curiously. He wondered who this villain was since he looked about their age, and he also got a weird vibe from him. When they got to a far enough distance, All Might and Nomu started trading blows. Shigaraki then said, don't you see All Might? He has shock absorption, as he scoffed. Shock absorption, not nullification, All Might replied, as he continued fighting. That's when Izuku saw that he was hitting Nomu in the same places over and over again. Izuku concluded that unfortunately they wouldn't be able to see the end of the symbol of peace today. All Might figured out his weakness, and there was only so much damage Nomu could handle. It seems his hunch was right because All Might gave the final blow, and Nomu went flying, and went right through the dome. Izuku then looked at Shigaraki, and saw he was having a mental breakdown. He cheated. You lied to Arata, you said he was weaker, but we're completely overwhelmed. Shigaraki screamed at him. What's wrong, villains? Not going to come at me? AllMight said confidently. No, something is wrong, Izuku thought. He recognized the steam when he transformed, and realized that he was bluffing. AllMight was at his limit. If he wasn't, then he would have quickly attacked them next, right, as he finished the Noma. No, Shigaraki, he's definitely weaker. It seems he's at his limit. If he wasn't, then he would have quickly attacked us right after defeating the Noma, Izuku clarified to Shigaraki. He's right, Shigaraki. If you look closely, you can see he's weakened from Noma's attack, Kurojairi said, supporting Izuku's answer. This might be an opportunity for Shigaraki. Think about it. You could give the killing blow to the great symbol of peace, Izuku followed. Yeah, you're right. I like your idea, let's do it, Shigaraki said. Then he, Izuku, and Kurojairi sprinted all might with the intent to kill. But before they could reach him, the other pro-heroes arrived. One of the pro-heroes, Snipe, quickly shot at both Shigaraki and Izuku. Shigaraki got shot in both legs and arms, and Izuku got shot in his right shoulder and thigh. Luckily his armor blocked most of the shots, but he still got grazed a bit. Kurojairi then quickly reacted, and warped himself, Izuku, and Shigaraki out of the USJ, and back to the base. But before he did, Izuku made eye contact with All Might. The symbol of peace saw something a bit disturbing in Izuku's eyes. It was as if the villain was calculating every move, analyzing every attack. The villain had a dangerous, but intelligent look in his eye. He also recognized those eyes, but he didn't know where. Back at the base, Shigaraki fell to the floor while Izuku sat down on it. Damn it, we lost, we failed. They were too strong, we didn't have a chance, Shigaraki said, whimpering. No, Shigaraki, take this as a learning experience. We'll be prepared next time. We know All Might is weakened, and the kids have quirks, so we'll be able to defeat them. If not, then we'll try again over and over. When you lose at a game, you can try again until you win, Izuku said, trying to cheer up Shigaraki. Well said, Arata. Yes, take his advice to heart, Tamura, and eventually you will defeat All Might. All for one said from behind the monitor. Shigaraki looked up at that, and decided to take Izuku's advice. Izuku then asked Kurojairi to warp him to his hideout. He complied, and when Izuku reached his base, he took off his suit, and laid on his bed, exhausted. Izuku was quite happy though. Yes, they didn't kill All Might, but he proved something. He proved that he could go up against opponents that had quirks with his suit. Of course, he would think of improvements for it in the future to go against stronger opponents if need be. And he would have the chance, like Bakugu, to do whatever he wanted to All Might, once he finished the endgame, which he was very excited for. He needed to start planning on how to actually do it though. For now, I'll take a nap, Izuku thought, as he rested for the day. The next day Izuku went right back to detective work. He was really putting out all of his energy in finding this quirk creator. Most likely because if he found him, then he could complete the endgame. The quirk creator most likely knew everything about the Q gene, and how it works. He is the creator after all, and perhaps he knew how to remove them from everyone on the planet. Unfortunately, just like yesterday, there was no luck. Izuku realized he needed to approach this differently. The quirk creator was most likely intelligent, and wouldn't just leave clues right there in the open. So he started to think about what he would do if he wanted to remain anonymous. Well, he would most likely do it in a way that leaves as little evidence as possible. He would also fake his death, just so people don't suspect him, and then move to a secluded area, like a forest or a secluded island off the coast of Japan. He didn't want it too far, so he could keep an eye on how society was handling the quirks, but not too close that someone notices that he's there. As he was thinking, he got a message from Kurojairi. It said that he was needed at the bar, which confused Izuku. I wonder what they need me for, Izuku thought with confusion. He then put on his casual villain clothes, which consisted of the usual white hoodie, black pants, and black sneakers. He put his hood up to hide his face a bit, and a black surgical mask. He never actually showed his face to the villains he worked with or the other league members, just to be as inconspicuous as possible. He messaged Kurojairi back, and he opened a portal for him. As he went inside, he saw the familiar setting of the bar, and went over to Kurojairi. He saw Shigaraki on the other side, just thinking. Izuku believed he took his advice, and was thinking on how to improve his missions. As Izuku reached Kurojairi, he asked him something. So what did you need me for? He asked. You see, someone wants to meet with you in person. You might know him as the man Shigaraki calls Sensei, and the one who talks behind the monitor, Kurojairi replied. So, the boss wanted to meet with him. He wondered why. Maybe it was a thing new members had to do. Meet the boss if you prove yourself. At least, he hoped that was the reason. He doesn't remember doing anything wrong, but if he did, he didn't want to know the consequences. Izuku nodded, and Kurojairi then opened a portal. As Izuku got to the other side, he saw that he was in a dark room. The only thing he could see was a man in a black suit sitting on a chair. The top of his face was gone, and all that was left was scar tissue covering where his eyes and nose would be. He was also connected to multiple tubes, which Izuku guessed was how he survived due to his injuries. "It's nice to finally meet you face to face," Iida-sensei said, with a deep, intimidating voice. "It's nice to meet you, as WL, Sensei," Izuku said, stuttering in fear. It's pretty obvious that he is intimidated by Sensei, even if he had all those injuries. He just had this aura on him that felt like he had limitless power, like he could kill him in less than a second if he wanted to. He may, as well, have been the polar opposite of AllMight, the greatest villain in the world. Although, Izuku was also fascinated. So this is the presence of a great villain, amazing, Izuku thought. This was the aura he wanted, the aura of limitless power, and fear at one glance once he finished the endgame. "There's no need to fear me, young one, although I also believe you are fascinated with me," Sensei said with a grin, as if reading his emotions and thoughts. "If you don't mind, Sensei, I must ask, what did you call me here? I mean, I don't think you bring in anyone to meet you, you would just leave it to Shigaraki," Izuku said, as politely as he could. The boy is very observant, Sensei thought with a bit of surprise. "Well, I first wanted to thank you. It is because of you that Tamura is starting to grow, quickly I may add, as a villain, and leader of an organization," Sensei said with praise in his voice. "The second reason, though, is more of instinct. I just had this feeling that you were more than you let on, as if you had a large plan at work. I just wanted to satisfy my curiosity." "You see," Sensei followed. "Oh, really?" Izuku said, nervously chuckling. He suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable, as if Sensei knew a lot more about him than he let on. "Yes, so I was hoping you could satisfy it," Izuku Midoriya, as Sensei finished, with a large grin on his face. Izuku was shocked. How in the world did he even know his name? He was sure he covered his tracks well. "If you're wondering how I know your name, well, it was quite simple. You said you were going to a school in Tokyo, and one of my quirks is detecting quirks, but you didn't seem to have one. I then looked up intelligent quirkless boys in the school, and I just connected the dots from there," Sensei answered. "Oh, and if you're wondering if I will spread the name, don't worry. Your name is a secret between us, and to make it fair, I'll tell you mine. My name is All for One. All for One. All for One, huh? Pretty cool. And thankfully he'll keep my name a secret." And did he just say he had one of his quirks, as if he has multiple, like Nomu, Izuku thought. This was all overwhelming for him. "Well, back to my original question. How about I make you a deal? If you tell me about your plans, then I can tell you about the secret of AllMight's quirk. Is that a deal?" All for One asked. Well, Izuku thought hard whether he should answer or not. He could lie, but Sensei would most likely catch it. He didn't really have anything to lose if he told Sensei, and he was very curious about what he said about knowing the secret of AllMight's quirk. He also had deep feelings inside him, as if he could trust Sensei, like he could tell him his deepest, darkest secrets. He may even get some advice from the villain. And so Izuku told him everything, from him being bullied for being quirkless, and believing that he could become a hero. About him, and All Might's meeting, and how the great hero shattered him to pieces. About his new views of society, and quirks, and his goal of becoming the one of the greatest villains to change society. About the Q genes, and his endgame of how he would build a machine to cleanse society of the quirks that they misuse. He didn't tell him about the quirk creator though. Something inside him told him to keep that to himself, that he would tell Sensei when the time was right. All for One was very intriguing. He could in a way see the boy's views, and even agree with them. Society really has misused quirks, and all Izuku wanted to do was take away all quirks in general, like taking a toy from a baby after the baby hurt someone with it. He is also for once grateful to All Might, because it was his arrogance that caused this boy to come to their side, and he is a very valuable asset for them. He was also quite surprised when Izuku explained the Q genes. He never really noticed before until he explained it. And when he talked about the machine to collect all the Q genes and inject them into his body, All for One almost chuckled. He may as well be building a replica of his quirk, but, as a machine, and able to collect every single quirk at once. Perhaps he could help the boy out by giving him a sample of his own blood. Well, I have to say I am very impressed. I would even say that I fully support your project, All for One said. Ah, really? Izuku said, overjoyed. Yes, and I believe it is my time to hold up the bargain, All for One replied. He then told Izuku about One for All, and its history. About how his brother passed down the quirk through generations until reaching All Might. About Nana Shimura, All Might's master, and how he sustained his injuries from All Might. He told him that One for All was specifically made to defeat his quirk, All for One. How he can steal and transport quirks, and is also how he has multiple quirks. He then told him that All Might was once quirkless, just wanting to see Izuku's reaction. Safe to say he wasn't disappointed. When All for One told him about One for All, Izuku immediately got a spare notebook just in case he needed it, and started writing down everything. He was even more overjoyed when he heard about All for One's quirk. Perhaps if he got permission, he could study it, and be one step closer to his goal if he just figured out how it worked. All in all, he was overjoyed, well, until he heard the last thing All for One say. Oh, and just so you know, AllMight was originally quirkless, All for One said with a malicious smile on his face. At first Izuku was confused. He didn't think he heard Sensei right. Could you please say that again? Izuku asked politely. AllMight was once quirkless. He even had the same dream as you, to be a great hero. A symbol of peace, All for One replied with a grin on his face, but Izuku didn't notice. Izuku was confused at first. Why wouldn't he? AllMight quirkless, it was unheard of. But then he realized something. AllMight was quirkless. His confusion quickly turned into hot anger. That fucking hypocrite. How dare he tell me I can't be a hero when he himself was quirkless? Izuku yelled in anger, as he slammed his fist into the floor, cursing at AllMight the entire time. After a while Izuku started to calm down, and then he realized he just threw a tantrum in front of All for One. He quickly stood up, and bowed in apology. Sorry, I lost my temper back there, Sensei. I was just very angry. Izuku apologized. It's alright. I would have had the same reaction if I was in your position, All for One reassured. Well, I enjoyed this talk with you, Izuku, and I also look forward to your plans in the future, All for One said, as he messaged Kurogiri, and a portal opened. Oh, and before you go, I may as well give you a token for my thanks, All for One said, as he stopped Izuku for a moment. He reached behind him, and pulled out a vial that was full of blood. I believe my blood will be very valuable to your research, Izuku, All for One said, as he gave Izuku the vial. Thank you, Sensei, Izuku replied, as he took the vial and stepped through the portal. He saw that he was transported back to his base, and not the bar. He was still frustrated with the fact that AllMight, the man that said he had to be more realistic, was once in the exact same position Izuku is in right now. It seems that One for All's power, and his fame, as a hero got to his head, and he became arrogant, and egotistical. Well, it didn't matter. Izuku had Sensei's blood, and he hoped that this would help him build the foundation of the machine to take every quirk. There had to be a reason why Sensei could take quirks. If he could figure out that secret, and then rebuild it on a much larger scale, the plans for the endgame would be complete. All he would have to do next was execute it. So far, we know there are 3 villains that lead this attack, Detective Naomasa Tsukachi said at the Utada staff meeting, which consisted of Midnight Snipe, Vlad King, the principal Nizu, and AllMight in his skinny form of Tashironi Yagi. We couldn't find any records with anyone under the name Tamura Shigaraki who's in his 20s or 30s with a disintegrating quirk. The same could also be said about the villain Kurogiri with the Warp Gate quirk, Naomasa said, going over the league members to the staff. What about the third one, Tashironi asked. He was actually more curious about this one than the other two. It was just a gut feeling that he was more dangerous. Well, we searched the records on the name Iida, but we couldn't really find anything. But what we did find was that he's actually a new and upcoming villain. It seems he started about 10 months ago, working with small-time thugs and helping them with robberies. He seems to be a strategist, an information broker on heroes that he collects information on, Naomasa said, explaining Iida to the staff. He must be very intelligent, especially if he can collect information on heroes and sell them, Snipe said, wondering who this Iida could be. He also seemed to be the one that told Shigaraki that I was getting weaker, Tashironi said, worried. If this villain was observant enough, then he could possibly figure out the secret of his quirk, and even find out his weakness. If he did that, then he didn't even want to imagine the consequences. Yes, very troubling indeed, Niza followed. He also seemed to be about the age of the school's students, judging by his height. And according to Bakugo and Kurishima, he seemed to have a wind-type quirk. A very powerful one at that. It seemed he could have killed them if he wanted to, but apparently only went there to test his skills against them, Naomasa said. How sad, an intelligent boy with such potential turning to the side of villainy, Niza said with concern in his voice. It seems that you guys are interested in this one villain more than the others, Vlad King spoke about. Oh no, the others concern me as well. It's just that this villain feels like he's more than he seems, like he's got some big plan in the works, and we just don't know it yet, Tashironi spoke up. Yes, that's what the same thing Aizawa said when I asked him about it at the hospital wing, Midnight replied. Well, if he does have a plan, we'll stop it, Vlad King replied. This is very troubling. A ringleader recruiting villains, a man with a warp quirk, and an intelligent strategist. This is just a recipe for disaster, Snipe said. Well, the police, and I will continue our search. If we find something, I'll be sure to notify you, Naomasa said. An intelligent boy, Niza muttered. What do you mean? Tashironi asked. It's just, I have that feeling, as well. If this villain really has something in the works, I'm sure it will affect the entire hero society as a whole, Niza finished. A chill fell across the room. What Niza said, for some reason, felt like it really might be true. They would have to be very cautious with Iida. The next couple of days Izuku went straight to work. He spent most of his time either studying Sensei's blood, or taking notes on the sports festival. He still couldn't find out the reason why Sensei could steal quirks, but he knew he was close. He just had to find out how he was attracting the Kyujins, and then he would find the answer. He just hasn't found it yet. Izuku actually enjoyed watching the sports festival. He recorded so many quirks, except Bakugo's, since he already knew everything about his quirk. He especially enjoyed the fight where Uraraka fought Baku. Of course she didn't win, but she stood up to him, and actually put up a good fight, which was something Izuku respected. He also liked Iida's performance. Sure, he lost against Todoroki, and Mei just used him to commercialize her products, but he, like Uraraka, put up a good fight. When Izuku first saw him, he immediately noticed that Iida was uptight, and stuck to the rules, but he also had a good heart, and a heroic spirit like his brother. But the one he enjoyed the most was Todoroki. Izuku thought he was amazing, especially when he put up a giant glacier. Of course, if he used his left side he could have easily beaten Bakugo, and won the festival. Izuku wondered why he didn't use it, until he remembered that Todoroki is the son of Endeavor. Considering who Endeavor was, Izuku wouldn't put it past him if Todoroki had dad problems. He probably didn't use it just to say fuck you to his dad, and show he didn't need to use his flames. Izuku knew they would have all become great heroes. Unfortunately, they wouldn't because of his endgame of getting rid of all quirks and getting rid of the notion of heroes and villains. Perhaps in an alternate reality, he could have become great friends with them. He can't know though, because he's a villain. Izuku was currently in the bar, his hood and surgical mask up, and was drinking a soda. As he sat around, thinking, he saw that Kurogiri had arrived with a man. He saw that he had blades all over his body, a red bandana, and bandages around his arms. Izuku recognized him as the hero killer Stain. He actually was kind of a fan of his work, killing all the fake heroes, which was something Izuku could agree on. He realized that Shigaraki brought him here to recruit him to the league. He wondered how it would go. He got a feeling in his gut that it wouldn't end well. I see, so you were the guys who attacked the US, and you want to add me to your number, Stain said. Yeah, come on, you've got much more experience as a villain, Sir Shigaraki said coyly. What are you after? Stain asked. For now, I just want to kill AllMight. I want to break everything I don't like, Shigaraki responded. Stain looked annoyed at that. I was foolish to be interested. You're the type of person I hate the most, Stain growled. You want me to go along with your childish tantrum? What meaning is there in killing without conviction? Stain asked, as he reached for his blades. Sensei, is this alright? Kurogiri asked the monitor, as Izuku slowly walked over to the corner, not wanting to be a part of what's about to happen. This is fine. There's no point if we tell him the answer. He should think about where he still needs to mature, Sensei replied. No matter what you want to accomplish, it is necessary to have conviction and desire. Those without it, and those who are weak are weeded out. It's only natural, Stain said, as he quickly apprehended Shigaraki, and stuck him to the ground with his knives faster than Izuku could comprehend. He's fast, really fast, Izuku thought with wonder. Stain then stabbed Kurogiri in the shoulder, and he saw that he licked Kurogiri's blood, and then was paralyzed. Izuku quickly realized that when Stain licks someone's blood, they get paralyzed. He wondered if it has different effects with different blood types. Stain then moved his eyes towards Izuku, but he quickly put his hands up showing that he wasn't going to do anything. Kurogiri, take this guy back, Shigaraki said worryingly. I can't move my body. It must be his quirk, Kurogiri responded, equally worried. This society is overgrown with fake heroes where the world itself has lost its true meaning, and the criminals who wave their powers around idly should all be purged, Stain said, moving his sword closer to Shigaraki's neck. Shigaraki quickly reacted, and disintegrated his sword. You sure talk a lot. Conviction? I don't have anything like that, but if I had to say, it would be AllMight. I really want to crush a society where trash like that gets worshipped, Shigaraki said with a crazed smile, as he stood up. It seems our goals oppose each other, however, we do agree on one thing, to destroy the present, Stain said. Stop messing around, go home, die. I'm the person you hate the most, right? Shigaraki replied. I was just testing your true motives. It's different, but there seems to be a sliver of conviction inside you, Stain said. Kurogiri, I don't want this guy as a party member, Shigaraki said towards Kurogiri. Then my business is done. Returning to Hosu, I still have some business to take care of, Stain responded with a crazed look on his face. As Stain left, Izuku thought about the whole conversation that took place. He couldn't help but agree with both Shigaraki and Stain. Stain because he wants to get rid of fake heroes, people who are in it for fame and money, not to save people. And Shigaraki because he wants to destroy the current society because they worship AllMight. Izuku clearly thought that society was pathetic if they worshipped a fake like AllMight, another leech, like a god. Damn him, he annoys me, Shigaraki said angrily. That was tense, Izuku thought, sighing at the release of the tension that was there. Sensei, how many nomus have you finished? Shigaraki asked the monitor. They're not as strong as the one from the USJ attack, but I've finished verifying 6, Sensei replied. Have more of the nomus? Izuku thought in shock. Give them to me, Shigaraki said. Why? Sensei asked. Because I don't like the hero killer. I can destroy things I don't like, right? Sensei Shigaraki asked. Very well, however, you can only have 3. Take this as a learning experience, Tamura Sensei finished. As Kurojairi opened a portal to a roof in Hosu, Izuku quickly asked, can I come along? He wanted to personally meet with the hero killer to see what he thought of Izuku's ideals. Fine, Shigaraki grunted. They quickly went on the roof, and Kurojairi opened up portals, and the nomas came out of them. As the nomas arrived, Izuku quickly left the rooftop, and went to find Stain. He was walking around for over an hour, and he started to hear the commotion the nomas were causing. As Izuku quickly went into an alleyway, he saw Stain pinning down who Izuku recognized to be Iida, and a native hero injured, sitting by the wall. Izuku wondered for a moment why the hero killer had pinned Iida, but then he connected the dots. Stain had paralyzed Iida's brother from the waist down, and it seemed that Iida wanted revenge. It didn't seem to go very well. Unfortunately, Izuku didn't bring his costume. He only wore his casual villain outfit. Izuku really didn't want Iida to die, so he had to use his words. He had to persuade the hero killer to spare Iida. Hello, Stain, Izuku. Stain quickly looked up. Who are you? He questioned. My name's Arita. I'm that one guy you looked at. At the corner, Izuku replied. Stain instantly recognized him. Iida quickly did too, when he heard his name. He looked up, and saw a hooded figure. It seems he was the one who defeated Bikugu. If you're wondering why I'm here, well, I just wanted to know what you thought of my ideals, Izuku said. Alright, I'll hear you out. The only reason why is because it doesn't seem childish compared to that man-child of yours, Stain replied. There was another reason though. He just had a feeling that whatever Arita was going to say, it would be good. You see, Stain, I agree with you. Heroes should only become heroes to save lives and inspire hope to people, not for fame or money. If they wanted that, then they should just become a celebrity or a fighter, Izuku explained. Though I also somewhat agree with Shigaraki. A society that worships quirks, especially AllMight, should be gotten rid of. Izuku. What do you mean? Stain asked, confused. He didn't know where Izuku was going. He personally thought that his and Shigaraki ideals were polar opposite. Iida too was curious, and so listened into the conversation. What I mean is, AllMight is a fraud, Izuku said with a dark tone in his voice. How do you know? I personally believe that AllMight is one of the only good heroes, Stain replied, with somewhat of a glare. You're a lot like I was once, tricked by the mask that is the symbol of peace. I don't blame you. With that powerful quirk and smile, you would think that he was the perfect hero, a strong yet selfless one only there to help and inspire people. But AllMight isn't any of those things. He's just like the rest of them, leeches to fame and money, Izuku said, looking Stain straight in the eye. When Stain looked at him, he knew Izuku was telling the truth. He knows when people lie. But when he looked in his eyes, all he saw was the bitter truth. So even AllMight, the greatest hero, is a fraud. Alright then, what's your point? What are you going to do to fix this society of heroes? Stain asked. Izuku started to chuckle. It's simple really. What made heroes and villains in the first place? What made society what it is today? Izuku questioned Stain. Both Stain and Iida were confused. What did he mean by what made heroes and villains in the first place? What is it? Stain asked. Quirks. They're like a drug in society. A drug that's been overused. So, the easy solution is to just take the drug away. That's right. I'm going to take away every single quirk, Izuku responded with a smile on his face. Not that they could see it. Stain and Iida were shocked. Stain mostly felt realization because he's never looked at it that way before. Arita had a point, a very big point. Iida just thought he was crazy. I mean, get rid of every single quirk, it's unheard of. But for some reason, Iida had this feeling that Arita could really pull this off. Now you must think I'm crazy. I mean, getting rid of all quirks, it's unheard of. But I wouldn't be telling you this if I didn't have a plan. So Stain, what do you think? Izuku asked. It's certainly interesting. I've never really thought of it that way. I like you kid, Stain replied with a crazed smile. Izuku was content, because now Stain liked his ideals. He then looked down, and remembered the other reason he was here. There's also another reason why I came here, Izuku said. Oh, and what's that? Stain questioned. It's him. You see, I don't want you to kill him, Stain, Izuku said, pointing at Iida. You see, there were two reasons why Izuku started with his motivations. The first was to get Stain's opinion, of course, but the second was to get Stain to like him, so he would have a higher chance of sparing Iida. He really did think this through. Now why would you want me to spare him? No, better question, why should I spare him? Stain asked Izuku. He didn't know why he would want him to spare this boy, especially since he is another one of the fake heroes. Iida too was confused. Why would this villain want to save him? You see, Stain, I believe Iida could become a great hero. He has the heart to do it. I heard about what you did to his brother, and that he came here for revenge. But come on, I would probably do the same thing if someone hurt somebody I cared about. You would too. And he's still a kid. He hasn't even graduated high school yet. Heck, he's still in his first year. He's still growing. He hasn't matured yet. And what would the media think? You killed a student from U.A. Everybody would probably forget your ideals and think you're just another serial killer killing for fun. So please, Stain, let him go, Izuku pleaded with him. As Stain thought about it, he realized that Izuku was right. He would be named as just another serial killer, and this boy wasn't even a hero yet. The more he thought about it, the more he realized it would be better just to let him go. Alright, I'll do it. But what about him? Stain asked, pointing at the native hero. You can have him, Izuku quickly responded. He didn't want to get in the way of Stain's kills. Iida was just an exception. Stain got off of Iida and moved toward the native. Izuku quickly picked up Iida and brought him out of the alleyway. Iida didn't know what to say. This villain just saved his life. Why? Iida asked with a hoarse voice. Why, didn't you hear? I told Stain that I see potential in you to become a great hero, Izuku responded. Yeah, but aren't you a villain? Iida asked him. And are all villains supposed to be evil? The word villain just means breaking the law using quirks, not being evil. Not all villains are bad. What if a villain robs a store just so he can provide for his family? Is he now evil? Izuku asked. Iida couldn't respond to that. He realized that he had a point. You see, what you did was very stupid, but you're still learning how to become a hero. Look, remember this next time. If you have that pain in your heart, grab it and squeeze it. Tell yourself that no one else is going to feel this pain. That you're going to save as many people from this pain as you possibly can. That is what it means to be a hero, Izuku continued, as he started to walk away. Iida couldn't help but be inspired. A villain just told him how to be a hero, and everything he said was right. Iida decided to put those words in his heart and grow as a hero. Oh, and just so you know, I wouldn't have saved you if you were a certified hero, Izuku said, turning back with a malice look in his eyes. He did that just to remind him that he was still a villain, and they were still enemies. As Iida watched him walk away, he realized that he wasn't paralyzed anymore. He quickly called Manuel and told him where he was and what happened. After that, he called it a day, still thinking about Uraraka's words. It's been a week since Izuku's talk with Stain, and it seems a lot has happened since then. Shigaraki is really pissed that Stain got more fame than him. Apparently he hoped with the Nomu attack that he could get more fame than him, but the complete opposite happened. It seems Izuku found out how All for One worked. It had another gene with the Q gene that attracted other Q genes, and with it, the entire quirk genome. That's how he was able to steal quirks. If he wanted to transfer them to another person, then he would just deactivate the attraction gene, and it would just go into the person he wanted it to go. He decided to call the gene Eros, the Greek god of attraction. Izuku thought it was a fitting name. Of course, All for One only has a small amount of the Eros genes, which is probably why he couldn't just grab every single quirk if he wanted to. Though, if Izuku could create a machine with enough Eros genes inside that it would be on a worldwide scale, then he could finish the endgame. Izuku also made theories about One for All. If All for One gave a quirk to his brother which created One for All, then it must have created a mutation of some sort. He also went into speculation on why All for One couldn't steal One for All. He theorized that the mutation of One for All is that it has multiple Q genes, but instead of them being separate they're stuck together. If the genes were separate, then All for One could easily just take it. But since they're all stuck together, and since Eros genes can only attract individual Q genes, then he can't get One for All. Though Izuku was sure if he could just break the Q genes where they're individual, then he was sure he could collect One for All. He just had to figure out a way to do it. Another thing he found out, apparently quirks came from rats. So, the quirk creator put the Q genes in rats in the form of a virus, and the rats spread that virus across the human population. He didn't blame him. Rats are one of the fastest disease spreaders, and if he wanted to spread the Q gene quickly and secretly, then rats are one of the best ways to do it. Another thing Izuku learned was the quirk singularity. It was basically a theory that quirks will get so powerful that humanity can't contain them anymore. As if humanity was on a ticking time bomb. Heck, if it wasn't for quirks, we would have reached space travel by now. And kids' quirks are getting stronger, and stronger by the generation, so it makes sense. But Izuku thought differently. He thought that the quirk creator knew this, but thought quirks would help humanity evolve themselves so far that it wouldn't be a problem. He probably thought the more quirks evolved, the more humanity would too. A perfect balance of human and quirk evolution, one helping the other out simultaneously. But unfortunately it did the complete opposite. Humanity stunted its own growth and misused quirks. And now, it's on the path of its own self-destruction. Just like a drug that's been misused. When Izuku learned of this theory, it just made him more determined to complete the endgame. He would save society, whether they liked it or not. Meanwhile at the Iida staff room, Toshironi was talking over the phone to Gran Torino. They were talking about the encounter Iida had with Stain and Arata. They were currently talking about what Arata said about his ideals. It seems this boy wants to get rid of quirks, Torino said in a gruff voice. Yes, like this boy is purging society of a disease, Toshironi replied. This boy must be crazy if he thinks he can do that. I mean, get rid of every quirk, that's impossible, Gran Torino replied with a bit of amusement in his voice. I don't think it's that far-fetched. It's just this feeling I get, that he could really do this, Toshironi responded with a bit of worry. Well, even if he could, there's only one man he would need to know on how to even get possibly close to doing this. The only person that can actually steal and pass on quirks, Gran Torino said in a dark voice. When I heard from Tsuchikage that Noma had multiple quirks, I had a bad feeling, Toshironi said, shaking in both fear and anger. The man who killed my sword friend, and your master, the previous one for all holder, Shimura, and opened that hole in your stomach. All for one must be starting to move again, Gran Torino replied. For him to have survived that injury is a reality I don't want to believe, Toshironi responded with a dark voice. Toshironi, I'm sure that a successor of yours will be able to help you defeat All for One once and for all, Gran Torino said, trying to put hope in the dark mood. Izuku was sitting in the bar, drinking tea this time, wearing his casual villain clothes. He wasn't wearing his hood up or mask since he was comfortable enough to let Shigaraki and Kurojiri see his face. He then saw Jiren arrive with two people. One of them was a girl around his age wearing a simple school uniform. She wore high black boots, had spiky blonde hair in two buns at the side, and wore a crazed, psychotic smile on her face. Izuku had a feeling that she was psychotic. The second person was a guy wearing a black jacket, a white t-shirt, some black pants, and black shoes. He had spiky black hair, but the most striking feature was the burnt purple skin covering areas like his neck, jaw, and under his eyes. Kurojiri, get rid of these two. I can already tell they're exactly the kind of trash I hate. A brat, and a guy with no manners, Shigaraki snarled. Now Shigaraki, give them a chance. What do you think of Arata? Kurojiri asked Izuku. I think the high school girl is pretty cute, and the guy with burnt marks looks pretty cool, Izuku responded. The guy he called cool didn't show any facial expression, but the high school girl immediately started blushing and looking at him crazily. Izuku started to regret ever calling her cute. Besides, Jiren is a respectable broker. They're bound to be valuable assets, Kurojiri followed. Like M or not, you still owe me a finder's fee, in cash, Jiren replied. I suppose I could introduce the two of them before I go, Jiren started. This one looks like an adorable high school girl, right? She's actually the suspect in a series of deaths where the victims are all bled out. So far, her name and face have been kept out of the media, Jiren said, introducing the high school girl. Toga here, Himiko Toga. Life is too hard. I just want to make it easier to live in this dumb world. I want to be Mr. Staney. I want to kill Mr. Staney. Come on, handyman, please let me join your league of villains, Toga said with a crazed smile. You gotta be kidding me. Is she crazy? Shigaraki asked. Izuku couldn't help but agree. She obviously had psychological problems. Well, she can hold a conversation, for the most part at least. Come on, she could be useful, Jiren replied. And this guy, well, hasn't committed any flashy crimes, but he's taken Stalin's ideology to heart, Jiren said, introducing the guy with burned skin. I don't like this. Is your group really dedicated to the hero killer's mission? I can't imagine you are if you're going to let this little psycho join you, the guy said. Toga looked stunned at that statement. Grow up. She may be a psycho, but at least she knows how to introduce herself to people. Don't just stare. What's your name? Shigaraki asked him. Right now I'm going by Dabi, Dabi replied. No, I want to know your real name, Shigaraki replied. I'll tell you when you need to know it. In any case, my new purpose is to carry out the hero killers, Dabi responded. That wasn't what I asked you, Patchwork, Shigaraki spat. Geez, why is everyone so hung up on Stain? He's all I ever hear about, Shigaraki said, as he stood up from his stool. Izuku could tell that he's really pissed off. No, don't do it, Kurojiri started, but Shigaraki interrupted him. Every damn day, it's really pissing me off. You two are done, Shigaraki said, as he charged at Dabi, and Toga with his hands held out ready to disintegrate them. Toga quickly reacted, and put a knife out, and Izuku could see Dabi put his arm out with embers coming out. Luckily Kurojiri put an end to the fighting by opening portals so all of their arms went out in opposite directions. Please calm yourself, Shigaraki. If your desire is to be realized, then we must increase our numbers. Now that we're in the spotlight, our chance is at hand, Kurojiri told Shigaraki. He then moved his misty head towards Shigaraki, and started to whisper to him. I advise you to be more accepting. You must use them, and the ideology Stain has left behind, Kurojiri whispered in Shigaraki's ear. Shigaraki then put his hands out of the portals, and started to walk away. I'm outta here, Shigaraki grunted. Where are you off to? Jiren asked. Shut up, Shigaraki spat, as he left the bar. Before anyone could say anything else, Izuku got up and started to leave. Don't worry, I'll talk to him, Izuku said, as he followed Shigaraki out of the bar. Is he gonna be fine? Jiren asked Kurojiri. Yes, he will. Iida is very intelligent, and whatever he's going to say, Shigaraki will most likely take it to heart, Kurojiri responded. Toga was really interested in Izuku, especially since he called her cute. Not only was he about her age, but he also looked pretty cute himself, and so she started to have a crush on him. Dabi too was curious. There was something about him that was interesting, as if he was the most important person in that room, like the main character. Like he was destined for something great. Shall we get to you about recruitment at a later date? I believe whatever Iida will tell him, it will improve him even farther. AllMight, and then the hero killer, he's been humbled twice very recently. I'm sure Iida will lead him to an answer, one that will satisfy both of you, as well as his own desires. Kurojiri finished. As Izuku caught up to Shigaraki, he saw that he was wearing a black sweater with his hoodie on. When Izuku got a look at his face, he realized that this was his first time seeing Shigaraki without a hand covering his face. He could clearly see his red eyes and pale face, yet he also saw he had really chapped lips, as if he never put lipstick ever in his life. Shigaraki only glanced at him once, and just kept walking towards the Kyoshi Ward shopping mall. Izuku guessed that he knew that he was going to give him some advice, since Sensei did say to learn from him, and was just walking until they found a place to sit. They eventually found a comfortable place to sit at, and started to talk. When it comes down to it, I hate basically everything, Shigaraki started bluntly. But the hero killer pisses me off the most right now. The problem is, it's like suddenly everyone's so obsessed with him. The attack on Uda, the Nomus I released on Hosu, he upstaged all of it. No one's even giving me a second thought. Why is that? Despite what he claims to believe, all he ever really did was try to get rid of whatever things he didn't like. What do you say is the difference between us, Iida? Shigaraki asked, looking at Izuku. Izuku thought about it for a second, then came up with an answer. You're right. You basically are the same, except for one small thing. Izuku started. What is it? Shigaraki asked. Why? Izuku answered, looking Shigaraki in the eye. What the hell does that mean? Shigaraki asked, confused. It's just what it sounds like. Why someone does something. You see, the reason why Stain is more popular is because people know why he does what he does. He kills heroes. Why? Because he thinks they don't deserve to be heroes because they're only in it for fame and money. But when people look at you, you hate AllMight and attack heroes. But why? If they don't know your reason, your why, then you'll just come out as just some cliché villain that will be gone in a couple weeks. Like just all of the other villains that were beaten by heroes, Izuku explained while looking straight into Shigaraki's eyes. But if people know your reason, and you hold on to your beliefs, then you'll be something different, something unique. If you have a reason, then people will start to notice you, and your cause. Izuku is finished. Shigaraki was stunned, but he also felt relief. He finally knew why Strain was more popular than him. He finally knew why people didn't seem to care about him as much as they did Stain. He finally understood why he was doing this, the reason why. He could finally see his purpose. I get it now. The problem is AllMight, and the Hero Society. I hate that society worships heroes, as if they can do anything, save anyone, especially AllMight. I hate that people smile all the time without a care in the world, as if nothing could happen to them. They're so discontent with reality that they think heroes will do anything they need them to do, and people don't have to put any effort. Shigaraki rambled on with a crazed smile on his face. Izuku too couldn't help but smile. Shigaraki was starting to grow, and understood what it meant to be a villain. And when he starts to grow, the league gets stronger, and they get more opportunities. He also felt a bit of happiness that he helped Shigaraki out, like a small part inside him wanting to help people, even if it was hidden very deep within. Well, Shigaraki, you think about that. I'm going to take a walk around the mall, Izuku responded, as he started to walk away. As he was walking around, he noticed someone. He recognized this person as Ochako Uraraka, the girl who fought Bakugo. He didn't know why, but a part of him felt as if he should meet her. He decided to listen to this feeling, and went up to introduce himself. Hey, I recognize you. You're the one who fought Bakugo, right? Ochako Uraraka, was it? Izuku asked her. Ochako looked flustered. She obviously wasn't very used to this type of scenario. Getting fame from the sports festival was not something she expected. Why yeah, it was me. I'm surprised you remembered. It wasn't that great of a fight, Ochako said sadly. Well, you were great. I think anyone who stands up to Bakugo should get respect. He seems pretty aggressive and intimidating, Izuku replied, not wanting her to know that he knew Bakugo at a certain personal level. Yeah, I guess you could say that. He is pretty intimidating. Well, what's your name? Ochako asked. It's Izuku Midoriya, Izuku responded with a smile. It was scary how he could change personalities. He could go from menacing villain to nice teenager if he needed to. So Izuku and Ochako talked for a while. Izuku asked about what it was like at Uda. Since Izuku did have the dream of going to the top hero school, he was a bit curious. They just talked about normal stuff, until Izuku asked her about why she wanted to be a hero. He was curious, since he had a feeling that she wasn't going to be one of the greedy people. Why did you want to become a hero? Izuku asked. Well, it seems a bit selfish, but it's because of money, Ochako answered, embarrassed. She knew it wasn't the most noble cause, especially when someone hears it for the first time. Izuku frowned a bit on the inside. He wasn't expecting that answer, but he figured that there had to be more to that statement, especially since she just didn't seem like one of the greedy people just in it for money or fame. Well, you see, it's for my parents. They own a construction company, but they don't make a lot of money, so I just thought I could help them out by becoming a hero. And helping people is just a bonus, Ochako said, looking at her lap. Izuku couldn't help but smile. He knew there was a reason why, and he was correct. Becoming a hero to help your parents out financially is quite noble, and heroic in a way. Well, I think that's a great reason to become a hero, Izuku responded with a bright smile. Really? Ochako asked. Yeah, well, I gotta go. It's been nice talking to you, Ochako, Izuku said, as he started to leave them all. Ochako just stood there, with a smile on her face. She really enjoyed talking to him. He just seemed so bright and nice. She was completely oblivious at the fact that she just talked to a villain and enjoyed his company. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.